Hello, everyone. It is Friday. And boy, news. Again, COVID-19 kind of gets pushed out of the front page due to all the riots in the country. Before I talk about that, I wanted to bring up an event that happened quite a few years back in which, and this kind of parallels with what's going on here. There was a group of, well, this happened in Boston, actually. Some people may know this. But the income distribution was tremendous between the haves and have-nots. Sound familiar? This happens in the United States currently. It's been going on forever, it seems like. But also, a lot of people in the Boston area were very marginalized. And there was an incident that happened that kind of caused a crowd to form. And the authorities shot into the crowd. 3 people died, and then 2 people later died from their injuries afterwards, which was pretty shocking because it was just an instance of, brutality on the part of law enforcement. And it kind of festered because the income inequality remained, and the people that were shot at were the have-nots. And then if a little time goes by, and then it just kind of sits there and festers, and then eventually it gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and then basically a riot breaks out, and some looting happens, and the businesses are destroyed. And which then caused an overreaction by law enforcement. And then, lo and behold, you have the American Revolution. So the Boston Massacre predated the Boston Tea Party. Because of the income inequality that was happening. The income inequality that was being handled back then was the colonists were being taxed quite a bit. And in counterpart, the British subjects weren't being taxed to the level that the American colonists were. So basically your money didn't go as far. You're already poorer than the British, and let alone then you were being subjugated by it. But the British colonists, the colonists that were here versus the British that were here, the British were the people in control. They handled the policing, the taxation. The colonists had no representation in Parliament, so they didn't get their voices heard. The laws had been changed in such a way that any kind of local government was being handled pretty much by the British, and the colonists weren't getting their say locally even. Not just in England, but even on the local level. And they were being taxed and subjugated and mistreated and shot at. Flash forward to present day. We have riots. What has led up to these riots? Mistreatment. The economic system is going against an entire group of people based pretty much on their race. The establishment is pretty much, even though laws have been passed, the economic inequality in this country is very sharp, and the laws are very unfair. Police brutality runs rampant. Oh, and by the way, the people that shot in the Boston Massacre, they did go to the soldiers that shot at the crowd and killed 5 people, did go to trial, and they were all acquitted. 2 lost their jobs. It was the 6 soldiers that shot and killed those 5 people. Yeah. So really justice wasn't served because they were basically murdered in cold blood. But they got off because they were law enforcement. There's so many parallels. Of course, what's happening in reaction to George Floyd's murder isn't that, people are wanting independence, have their own country. But the independence they're searching for and wanting is independence of autonomy. Our system in this country really is geared for the wealthy and for those in power. Blacks and Hispanics and Asians and Native Americans have been oppressed for so long. The racism in this country has targeted blacks for years. The difference is that now we have cell phones and video cameras, so we can see with our own eyes the brutality. And then George Floyd's murder is truly one of the most exceptional pieces of video that has been captured, showing the racism and the oppression. And as I mentioned in my prior video, the protests had started off peacefully until the police shot tear gas, and then all hell broke loose. And then, of course, then we've had nightly protests that are becoming increasingly violent. And some people are taking advantage of it and inciting additional violence. We have the president who tweeted a very racist message in the middle of the night. And it's despicable because he's fomenting this racial division. He used very coded language. It's not even coded. Everybody knows what he means when what he wrote. I mean, it was so obvious to everybody. It was obvious to me. But it's a way to incite his base. But it also inflamed the protesters. Yes, I don't believe in the escalating violence. As I've mentioned before, I'm Buddhist, so I try to observe peace, follow peace. But I completely understand the anger and the frustration. And this also reminds me very much of the LA riots. I lived in LA in the middle of the riots, and the riots broke out in the air. I was working at the time for the Department of Social Services in the welfare office, and I was the token white person there. And when the riots broke out, and they told me to go ahead and leave early to get out of there because it was very much whites were being targeted. And everybody at the office knew me. They're like, I know you look white, but you're so Mexican. But it won't matter because you look a certain way. So they let me go home early for my own protection. But what had happened right before the LA riots that people forget is we were in a big recession. Benefits for food stamps had been cut by 25% a month before the riots broke out. So people who were depending on assistance for food, and we're talking the amount of food that was being given was not much to start with. So 25% cut was massive. There was already all this racial tension that existed. And then the people who were being affected the most were lower income, which happened to be minorities. Because, as I say, in this country, minorities have been downtrodden. So you don't get, unfortunately, more minorities are poor than white people. There is poor white people, but percentage of population-wise, because of this horrible history in this country, blacks and Hispanics and Asians, for the most part, have been downtrodden economically. And so when you cut the lifeline they had of 25% in benefits, so a family of, at the time, it was like a family of four had $200 worth of food stamps to survive on in a month. We're talking this is 1992, if I remember correctly, or 1991. And all of a sudden it dropped to 150. It was practically impossible to survive on that. And this is a family that would be was basically unemployed. So if you earned any kind of money, your benefits were reduced proportionately. So, it just, in a proportion. So it was just pretty much impossible to survive on what was being given. And then it was cut. And this impacted the minority community in California, period, but especially in LA. And so add to this the police brutality towards Rodney King, the acquittal of the police officers, basically saying what they did was not a crime, which was obviously a crime, but it was, the racial tensions were high, the economic impact was being very strong, there wasn't enough minority representation in LA at the time, on the governmental level for the most part, even though there had been a black mayor at one, it just wasn't enough representation. You had a police officer, the head of the department, that was you could tell he was racist because of some of the comments he had made, even though he claimed he was not. So it was no surprise that the LA riots happened because there was all these factors leading up to it. And it was interesting to note that in the LA riots, grocery stores were attacked, businesses were attacked because, and what was being stolen the most from the Targets and the Walmarts there at the location, at the grocery stores? Meat, beef, because it was so expensive. People couldn't afford it because on food stamps you couldn't afford that. People had gone without for so long, so of course stores got looted for luxury goods because people just want nice things. They want, whether it's electronics or furniture or whatever it was. So I totally understood why, when there's so much desperation and want and need, the impetus to loot. Because you can only go for so long eating, potato salad, eating, beans and rice, barely any actually protein meats. You couldn't get anything of luxury, scrimping on every dollar. You have a TV that's 25 years old and barely gets a channel. People were in such economic despair. Flash forward to now. The economic inequality still exists. Add on top of it this virus, COVID-19, that has just exacerbated everything because now people are unemployed, and the people that do work are, oddly enough, the essential workers. A lot of them are minority, but the jobs pay so poorly, and you're forced to scrimp and save, and you can only do so much. And then you have this police brutality happen, caught on camera. You've had enough. You completely have had enough. And when you attempt to peacefully protest and you're met by tear gas, the gasoline had been spilled. All was needed was a match to ignite it. And it happened. It's significant that the police station was torched. That was those ships in Boston Harbor. Yes, other businesses got looted because once you get a crowd out of control, it is something that, unless you've been in a crowd where all of a sudden panic ensues in a crowd, you really begin to lose your individuality and think individually, and you start reacting collectively as a group. So I understand that, because there's something really does happen to you when you're in a situation where chaos erupts. I've been in a situation where chaos erupts, and I found myself not thinking clearly. It happened to be dealing with an earthquake, but it was interesting how I reacted. Was kind of like a group reaction with the group. Anyway, so I completely understand the rioting. I completely understand the looting. It is unfortunate because this could all of this could have been avoided had we not had a racist cop murdering somebody on camera. But even without that could have happened. We would not still have riots. But if you didn't have people whose wages are so low because there's been no increasing minimum wage, where people are having to work multiple jobs to survive, and all of a sudden now they find themselves struggling to survive because there's not employment, thanks to this virus. This virus is killing more African Americans than any other group because of their living conditions. They're being exposed to this virus. Living conditions meaning because they still have to work for these meager jobs that pay minimum wage. It's not a survivable wage, and you're putting your life at risk for that, but you don't have an option. It's unfortunate that this has happened, but it is completely understandable. And what is sad is you had the Watts riots, you had the LA riots, you did have Chicago riots, you've had riots on and off throughout American history. And white America has not learned the lesson. They sort of put a Band-Aid right afterwards, but then let it fester again. And it takes a good 10, 20 years before it erupts again. Because white America is not ready to make the systematic, deep changes needed to prevent people from having this explosion of emotion, because they're so downtrodden for so long. This is the illness in this country. Racism, coupled with economic inequality, coupled with lack of representation, proper representation. I do see some of these elected leaders that are of color, and I'm not just saying black, but I hate to use the word Uncle Toms, but there's plenty of them in power. They're elected based on their skin tone, not on their political perspective. Or they give the good talk, but they really do not care to represent the communities properly. I'm not saying all of them, but there's enough of them. The majority are good elected leaders. But I do see, and it's the example of some black leaders that are praising Trump after the man has made himself so obviously racist. His policies are racist, but they still are praising. It's in the same in the gay community. I mean, you got the log cabin Republicans. So each minority group ends up with this, outlier. Unfortunately, sometimes they get into power, and then the racists in this country, the white people in America, will say, well, this black person said that was okay. Because they use the scapegoat of the one outlier as the reason why they can then defend their viewpoints. But nothing is going to get solved unless we vote, and we truly vote for people with conscience who are into helping the communities they represent, not for political gain and power. I find it frustrating that a lot of people that I know do not understand the big picture. They're like, why are they tearing down their own community? Well, in LA, people got out of the neighborhood and went to the nice neighborhoods and set them on fire. So it doesn't only just happen in the community. Last night in Minneapolis, St. Paul, there was fires in St. Paul. The event happened in Minneapolis. So this is also a false narrative perpetuated by whites that they only burn their own community down, meaning blacks. No, the anger and wrath is taking out in other neighborhoods. If you're in a riot like I was during LA riot, I was shocked how widespread it was. And, people living in Hollywood in a very white area, and all of a sudden they found their buildings being torched. It was a wake-up call to them. It was like, my God, they got in their car and came over here to burn stuff down. People went down to Long Beach. This is not where Rodney King got beaten up, where it was happening. It was happening all over the place. It was happening all over the place. Again, Colorado had some issues. Denver. This happened in Minneapolis. It isn't that they're just torching their own neighborhoods. They live in the neighborhood, but guess what? A lot of those businesses are not black owned. They burnt the Target. They looted the Target. Target's got insurance. They burned an AutoZone. AutoZone? Who owns AutoZone? It's a big corporation. These are corporations that, yes, they employ these minority communities at the minimum wage rates. They're in a way, even though they're there to serve the community, they're also using the labor force of the community and keeping them downtrodden with horrible living wages. Not enough to survive in. Not that they're at minimum wage at Target necessarily, but it's definitely not what I would call a job working at Target that you're going to live comfortably under. So, of course, there's wrath towards these companies. And you're desperate. You've gone without for so long. There's no police officers. Somebody smashed the windows, and some people will go in and take advantage. But I saw white people going into those businesses and looting them too. Pardon the expression, but they look like white trash because white people are suffering too. So they took advantage of the situation. Hey, why not? It's not right. But it's not right what the country has done to these people either. So this retaliation is completely understandable. Why, we've had peaceful protests. Taking a knee all these football players that took a knee, and the country lambasted them for being un-American. That was their right to express themselves and to show the displeasure they have. And the fortunate thing is some of these football players got out of these horrible neighborhoods and managed to accomplish something in their lives, but they had the decency to acknowledge that this inequality is happening, this racism is happening, and knelt. That is patriotic. I'm frustrated with this country's racism. I am just, the intolerance in this country is horrific. And it's been, our president with his constant tweets, just adding more fuel to the fire. He wants a race war. He wants a race war in this country. And he's got one going now. And of course, he's going to, once these things are squelched, and they'll be squelched in an ugly way more than likely, he'll claim victory. Oh, look, we beat up those black people. It's basically what it's going to boil down to, which is just disgusting. Somebody needs to riot in Washington, D.C. at the White House. That would be worth watching. Because he is so insulated. He lives in such a bubble. He has no idea what it's like to be in the middle of a riot. It was a big wake-up call for me. I remember learning about the riots and not quite fully understanding why, and thinking they really shouldn't be burning it all this is wrong, till you're in the middle of it and you've seen what's led up to it, and you could feel it was in the air before it happened. All of us at that welfare office, we knew a riot was going to happen anytime soon, because we could feel the tension of what was going on. And we all knew that verdict was coming up, and we knew that would be, the gasoline was poured. We were just needing the match. And that was it. But none of us were surprised. And we knew we'd have riots a couple of months before, because we realized people are not going to get their benefits. They're still getting their benefits this coming month, but the following month, they're going to feel the pinch of the cut of the benefits. And then another month is going to go by, and before they make it to the end of the month, they're going to be out of their benefits and really on the ropes of how to figure out how to feed themselves. And so we said, that's when you're going to see it happen. And that was going to it ended up coinciding with the end of the trial. But I remember we were notified about the change in benefits, and we were already like, there's going to be rioting over this. Not now, not in a month, but about in a month and a half, when these benefits really, people feel the effect of the change. And we were right. I was not surprised. As I said, I personally am Buddhist. I don't think violence is a way, but honestly, I can understand the frustration, because they've been doing peaceful protests in this country, and nothing's changed. Some people, why don't they march peacefully? Well, what has changed? Nothing. Black Lives Matter. They do. Most of the protests have been peaceful. Yes, highly inconvenient when they closed down a freeway. For a while, Black Lives Matter kind of went on a little detour, kind of went on an anti-homophobia detour there for a little bit. And I kind of questioned my support for them, because it was like, you are taking on an issue you should not be taking. Stay in your lane. Us gay people have our own issues. Yes, there's racism in the gay community, but not to the degree, at least in my experience, as someone who's been active in the gay community and vocal in the gay community, to the degree that I see it in just regular white America. So when they were attacking at one point, I had an issue with Black Lives Matter. I was like, get back into your lane, because what you're doing is great and it needs to be done, and you don't need to go off track and discredit yourselves, because that's important. Black Lives Matter is so important in this country. So, and anybody who says all lives matter, we have gone over this lesson so many times. So if you tell me in response to this that all lives matter, you're a fucking racist, bigoted person. Because we have explained why Black Lives Matter and why that slogan is important And if you've gone, I don't think so, I think all lives matter, it's been explained to you plenty of times. You're just using an excuse to be bigoted. Anyway, enough of my rant. I'm just so angry at this country. I'm so angry that it has come to this, that people have allowed it to come to this. And all of you who are not planning on voting because you don't like your candidate, then that means you're okay with Trump. Every black person in America should be voting for Biden. He was not my first choice. He really was not. But I cannot take 4 more years of Trump. He is destroying this country. It can't get any worse. We've got a pandemic, social inequality, the biggest unemployment rate in the history of the United States since the Great Depression. We might exceed that. More people have died this year, that the average life expectancy of an American has dropped because so many people have died so far this year, and the disease isn't really under control. I mean, how much worse can it get? It's gotten pretty bad. So vote and get this buffoon out of office. We cannot take much more of this. And my dog is barking at something. She's hearing me getting riled up, so sometimes we'll do that too to get me distracted. And she's coming down here. I'm going to let you go. Please like, subscribe, and ring the notification for any more videos that I put out, because I put one out daily. I'm chronicling my life with the coronavirus. And this, little did I know it was going to be a historic period in American history that these chronicles are covering. Oh my God. I was just doing it as a personal diary, but it's really a chronicle of American history is what this is becoming. Because we're living in historical times that will be looked back on 100 years from now of what the hell we were doing and what was going on, what were people thinking. Little did I know when I started this. And it's been 2 months that I've been, this is actually should be video 61, I think now. So I've been chronicling for 2 months straight, even though I started a couple weeks before that with the quarantine with coronavirus, but I started chronicling. This is 2 months now. Little did I know I'd be living through such intense history. So anyway, like, subscribe, ring the notification. I'll post a video up tomorrow. And please be safe. Wear your masks. I'm still telling people, wear your masks. Oh, that somebody put up articles like, the World Health Organization says you only need to wear masks if somebody's sick. And according to Fox News, and the article was dated first part of March, when we didn't know that much about the disease. And I answered, like, girl, are you going to tell me about, flying in a Zeppelin is dangerous because, it could explode. Look at what happened at the Hindenburg. If you're going to give me a news article, give me something a little more recent. But she was claiming, we don't really have to wear masks, because she was referencing an old article, and since we've learned so much more since then. Anyway, I'm rambling. See you mañana. Have a good evening. If you see this in the morning or the afternoon tomorrow, have a good morning or good afternoon, and I'll sign off with my regular, So here we go.